Hey there, I'm Sarah Sproule, and this is Sitting in a Car for Another Week, where I answer parents' questions to help you, raise confident and caring young people who respect themselves and the people around them, and that they feel supported as they go along this journey of growing up into a young adult and having intimate, supportive, loving relationships. Today's episode is about HPV, and it's a special episode because, first of all, I'm not sitting in a car. Second of all, it's going to go out on a completely different day, different than you expect. But I wanted to get this video out as quickly as possible because more than likely you are going to have a form come home in the school bag if you have a child who is in first year. If your child is in the first year of secondary school, they will be part of the group that will be being offered the HPV vaccine. Now, HPV stands for human papillomavirus, and HPV is the most common sexually transmitted infection currently. Heaps and heaps of people have it. What I want to do is create a little resource for you that will help you unpack maybe your thinking around the HPV vaccine. This is not medical advice. Just going to be really clear on this. This is an opportunity for you to talk to me, parent to parent, sexuality educator to parent, occupational therapist to parent. This is not medical advice, okay? But just maybe something to help you think. It's really confronting to consider that our young 12-year-old, maybe 13-year-old, is eligible to have a vaccine to protect them from a sexually transmitted infection. Let's just put that out there right now. I don't know about you, but my kids, when they were 12 and 13, still seemed pretty small and still seemed pretty childlike. And there was no way my brain was sort of going, oh, this is a child that is going to grow up and have some sort of intimate relationship with someone else one day. My brain was not there at all, even though I was absolutely in the business of talking to them about puberties and bodies and relationships and human sexuality. So first things first, you may feel a little bit confronted by this. Your child is growing up before your very eyes. Second of all, you may have heard some scary stuff about side effects for the HPV vaccine. Now, your responsibility is to go and find reputable information about the HPV vaccine and the side effects, okay? So if you're using Dr. Google, you need to find resources from the HSE because they've got clinical trials going on there. The HPV vaccination has been in Ireland since 2010, so there are many, many, many years of vaccinations having taken place with a lot of information about what is happening at a population level. And the HSE is pretty clear that the benefits of the HPV vaccine are significant and strong, and the side effects are, well, they've documented the side effects, so you go and have a look at that. You will know from my accent that I was born in Australia, and Australia has been vaccinating against HPV for far longer than Ireland, and the rates of cervical cancer and the other cancers that are related to HPV, like there are different forms of throat cancer and anal cancer, are dropping. They've seen a huge shift. So you might like to have a look for articles that talk about that too. The last point to make that might be causing difficulty for you when you're thinking about the HPV vaccine is that by ticking the box and saying, yes, my kid should have the HPV vaccine, you are in a sense rubber stamping their permission to go out and be sexually active. While that might not sound logical as I'm saying it out here to you right now, there may be a part of your brain that is going, oh, my kid might see this as permission to go out and get it all on. And I would just like to talk about that for a few minutes. Oftentimes as parents, and even some sexuality education programs out there, work on the assumption that if we don't talk to our kids about things to do with sex, they will be less likely to go out and experiment with things to do with sex. And when I say things to do with sex, I'm not talking about full-on sex intercourse. I'm just talking about kissing, and touching someone else's body, which is age-appropriate activities for 12, 13, 14-year-olds. That might be shocking to you, but part of adolescence is learning about our body and having crushes on other people, and maybe having the courage and the communication abilities to tell other people that we like them and that we'd like to hold their hand or kiss them at a disco. All right, so if you're thinking about your child being sexual active, that's like the 100K on the motorway activity, and there is the 30K an hour activities that I've just described, like holding hands, touching each other, having lunch together, maybe kissing each other in a disco or in the lane behind school. Okay, so our brains as parents might be jumping to the 100K an hour activities, but really most of our kids, our young people, are going to be down here having age-appropriate experimentation. So that's okay. It may still feel shocking to you, but it's age-appropriate and it's okay. The second thing to let you know is that evidence suggests that if a young person has access to accurate information about how to keep themselves physically safe, safer sex practices, how to communicate and keep ourselves safe from unneeded peer pressure to do with interacting, you know, kissing, hugging, maybe intercourse, that the children that have an adult who has been talking to them about that and upskilling them with skills to help them stay safe and healthy, those kids have an easier time of making healthy, smart decisions around their relationships. So while our animal brain, our scary brain up here might be going, don't talk about these things, it's going to put my kids at risk, they're going to start thinking about entering into that part of life, it's actually the opposite is true. The more we are able to talk to our kids and support our kids in this new part of life and negotiating this life, the more equipped they'll be to make safer decisions. Before I finish up, there's one final thing to say. All infectious diseases or illnesses are not created equal in our human mind. Some illnesses, some diseases come with a lot of stigma and a lot of shame. And if we feel stigma and shame, we're going to be less able to seek out help. We are less likely to talk to someone who we trust to get help. And sexually transmitted infections are by far the most shameful in our culture. So when the form for the HPV vaccination comes in, this is a great opportunity to address that shame with your kid. Now, not all of us are going to be able to do this. You may be a parent who has no idea how to start a conversation about sexually transmitted infections, and I completely understand that. So just listen to what I'm going to say and think about how could it be possible to do one tiny act or say one tiny thing that might make these conversations start to open up between you and your kid. Here's my suggestion. You might start talking about how there are all different ways that human beings get infected with disease. All right, you could talk about how colds get spread by droplets. So if we're in an environment where someone is sneezing and coughing, we might breathe those droplets in and we are going to get sick if our immune system isn't able to fight it. We can also get sick from eating infected food or having interactions with infected animals or drinking infected water, okay? And none of those really have that much stigma or shame around them. But we can also add in that humans can also get sick from our genitals touching someone else's genitals, or our hands touching someone else's genitals, or our mouth touching someone else's genitals, or someone's mouth touching our genitals. And that's just another way that disease is spread. And you might like to say that when children are young, adults don't really talk about that with kids because for kids, their privates or their genitals are just to be touched by the child themselves and maybe their healthcare professional and maybe a parent if that child needs help with cleaning or something doesn't feel right. So when children get into adolescence, the adults around them sort of forget that, oh, we need to talk to them about this other sort of diseases that are out there. Now, I like to talk about sexually transmitted infections with my kids in the context of all the different sorts of infections that are possible being human, because it just makes them a little bit more less stigmatized, less shameful. And I want my kid to come to me if something is feeling itchy or something doesn't look quite right. I don't want them to be hiding in their room, feeling ashamed and worried, which means they won't come for help. And let's face it, a lot of teens still need help managing that physical part of their sexual health. And keep in mind that sexually transmitted infections can be passed from person to person without having intercourse, okay? So just because your kid isn't having intercourse doesn't mean they're not at risk of some sort of STI. Try not to freak out about it. I know it's really freaky and hard, but the more we can be open to even suggesting this, that we're open to having these conversations, or maybe even texting your kid. Oh, by the way, you should be getting a form home from school about vaccinations. One of them is HPV that people can get through sex. And then you can say what you're going to be doing with the form. I'll be filling in that form so you can have that vaccination, because it's really important that we look after all the different parts of our health, and that includes our sexual health. So that's sitting in a car for another week, where I have talked about a question that you might have that will help you have a connected conversation with your teen and tween, which means that they are well resourced to enter into healthy, safe, and respectful relationships as they grow up. Bye for now.